So where I come from is, right here, Easton, Easton High graduate. I had this experience when I was 16 where I had a genetic illness as a kid, and I was the first class that got the laptops. And without that laptop, I wouldn't have been able to take my finals because I had a flare-up, it's arthritis, and I couldn't grip a pencil. So I was able to take all my assignments on the laptop and then my finals and then graduate. It ended up being the last flare-up I ever had because it was the juvenile form, which was wonderful. Yeah. But in my junior year, the laptops were being threatened with defunding from the county council. The grants had run out that initially. And so I was asked by the vice principal to come and talk, Mr. Callahan, and share my story and explain like why these laptops were so important, and that it wasn't just a luxury, it was literally the way kids were learning. And actually during that experience too, one of us stood up and was like, I can't help but notice you're giving this budget presentation on a laptop. And you're acting as if like but the kids don't need to learn how to use it. Like, can you go to a doctor's office and not use it? We were able to get the funding, and obviously it's gone on around the state, and I'm pretty sure it's being replicated across the country now, and that Maryland was the first. And that experience, where I saw the community come together and taught me what local government does and how important county councils are. And I've pretty much been involved ever since. So I went off to school, of course, and I was at Emerson College. And when I came home, I went for digital media, so I started volunteering. And a lot of people, especially politicians, needed help with their website presence and social media presence and videos. And so I videotaped in the 2018 election for people. I actually hosted similar. You can still find those videos on Facebook, I'm sure, where I was interviewing like Pete Lesher and everything last time around. And while I was doing that, I was learning the issues, and I was becoming very interested in what was going on. I always was, because I think local government is just so important. And when you look at the national stage, I tend to get very discouraged, very unhappy. And then I turn around and see, all right, I can't do anything about that problem at the bigger level, but I can make sure there's a stop sign on that street. I can make sure kids have laptops in schools, and that we can clean up the Trap Creek and how that'll help a cleaner Chesapeake Bay. And so, these are things that have immediate impacts, and I would argue more of an impact than, it's not like the president isn't important, but on a daily life scale, it's your county council, it's your town council, it's your homeowners association that really make the difference. Like I said, I'd always been involved, very active, and I always figured I would be behind the scenes, that I would help get other people elected. And then 2016, a certain person got elected president, and it really drove home for me how it wasn't just that I wanted to help others, I needed to run myself. That my own voice was important, and that women running was important. And so that was what made me interested in running for office. And then as far as running for Talbot, like I said, I was home, I was learning these issues, and it's where it made, it's where I felt the most connection to people in my life. And what really started to move there was move the monument, and then Lakeside. Were the two issues now that kind of are in the last couple of years. And plus, I started watching the county council meetings, and I just, especially around the monument issues, on both sides there was just such rancor, and I really want to bring civility back to our local government. I think there's no real need for that, and I was kind of disturbed. So that's really what kind of just drove me back to. And then I went to Emerge, which is a candidate training program. Oh, you did? Yeah, and I graduated of 2020. And so it was talking with them that was also about finding where, should I look at running for town council or county council, or, what made the most sense for what my passions were and what issues were important to me. Well, first let me say I'm very pleased that we have such a diverse slate of candidates. They are wonderful people, every one of them, honestly. I think what I bring to the table is a different perspective. I am by far the youngest candidate, And I am full of just energetic new ideas, and I'm not married to something that might have always been done the way it was always done. I'm really looking, I look to bring a vision of long-term thinking to the county, and in a way that I don't think is currently reflected. I think we seem to go from crisis to crisis and act in a reactive manner. And just by being the virtue of, young, passionate local girl, I bring a different view. I also think I'm very detail-oriented. I work in my day job in marketing as a planner, so what I do is oversee 6- and 7-figure budgets all the time, and that's what I would be doing on the county council, is overseeing the budget. I got a reputation around my office for being the girl who tracked a penny down, so that's the same kind of attitude I would bring, because it matters. Those details are really important. Like, I know it's just a penny, and there have certainly been times where I was like, I'll pay the penny, to close the book out, but this is what matters. And when it's taxpayer dollars, we need to make sure every penny is spent in the way it needs to be. So, well, I know it's already happening, but the comprehensive plan is being rewritten next time. And so my first priority will be, and I think it goes from day one all the way through, is making sure that that plan is written with a lens for climate change, an actual addressable timetable. The land is sinking, the water is rising. It's a great combination between subsistence and sea level rise. And we're already flooding. We're already dealing with these issues. I mean, I think there's issues like Tillman wastewater plant. That road gets flooded. And if it floods out and there's a problem at the plant, we're one terrible storm away from swimming in sewage. So I feel like things like looking at closing that plant and other things that we could do, like Knapp Narrows Bridge, or and the barrier islands and Black Walnut Point that we could build back up, which basically all comes together to the green. So climate change for the comprehensive plan is kind of number one, which then leads straight into the greener, cleaner Talbot plan that was initially it was the Green Infrastructure Plan in 2004. It's being rewritten. There's a draft now that's identified 5 areas of projects that we should really be looking at tackling ASAP over the next 5 or 6 years. Number 2 is broadband access. Now, I work remotely. I deal with terrible broadband issues all the time. If we're both on, my boyfriend and I, if we're both on video conferences, it doesn't work. Actually, just today, I had a very big important meeting, and I had moved out into the main room so that I could be right next to the router, and he was not home. And when he came in, he was kind of like staring at me. I was in the middle of the meeting, and I was just like, I am very, very familiar with the struggles. My family's in Cordova. I know out in Trapp and areas in Tillman, they don't even have cell service. Broadband enables telehealth, telework, and remote education, of course. It's really across the spectrum, and I feel like it's today's version of what phone lines were, right? Yeah. It's today's utility, and it's not a luxury. Yeah. And then my third is education funding. Since I was at Easton High School myself, I have been fighting for the county council to properly fund education up front. And with the Kirwan Commission having passed at the state level, we're going to see impacts, significant impacts. We were name dropped in the Department of Legislative Services document like 26 times or something ridiculous like that, for the fact that we do not have the revenue to support what these recommendations are. Now, the good news is, because we're name checked like that, if we spend to a certain level, the state will match it and we can apply for federal grants. So it'll basically be like, for every $1 we spend, we get $3. And that's how we will meet this effort. And then we don't have to be fighting for supplemental funding, because our teachers deserve pay raises, the support staff deserve pay raises, and God, the hell they have been in with COVID alone. They need better support across the board with mental health resources and support for social emotional learning, etc. So those are really my main 3. But I also realize that no one knows every issue that's going to come up. Certainly nobody saw COVID coming, and of course with the county being the health officer, really. I mean, obviously the health department works and it's a state department, but that means that the county council has to take a view on these things, and that really brings it back to what I was saying about vision and perspective, because we have to be ready for any challenge that could come our way. I think that really the most important thing to know about me is just that when I don't know the answer to something, I will go and find it out. I do my homework. I don't like not knowing something, and that has included like situations in my job where so being the young person who was there for a digital job in a manufacturing environment, I walked into a plant and they were having trouble with their printer. I have no background in printer expertise, but they asked if I could help out. I went and found the manual and I got gloves to open up the back and I fixed it. And that is exactly the attitude I would bring to the council. My friends like to say that I'm just, when I can't figure out how to do something, I just stubborn my way through it. I figure it out. I get it done. I make sure that the job gets done.